Hello everyone, Zenro Gaming coming at y'all with another video, and in today's video we are going to be doing our tier list maker video for the Union Arena trading card game, and this is going to be the more competitive version of this tier list. Now you can see I have taken out a lot of decks out of this tier list and the Gatekeeper Rogue outside looking in tier list, because when there's a lot of decks, if it did not receive a top at all in any different tournament, I removed them on here. I kept a couple on here, some random ones, because I think they are strong enough for me to have to mention and talk about. But, you know, a lot of things, if your favorite deck is not on here, it's because I removed it off because it does not have a top. Some notable ones that have stayed on here for a long time, I think I removed, are like Hashira's, and a couple like random things out of the Rogue tier, and then some things that maybe I projected to do okay, but not doing so well, and then added a couple other random things back on the list just because they did okay, which is the specified slots here. This did get a top, so I wanted to bring it back onto the list, and obviously you guys know that Hunter x Hunter and Yu Hakusho are my favorite IPs in the game, so I do try to talk about them a little bit more. But we're going to do what we do every time we revise one of these, and we go through, look at what the list looks like compared to what has been topping on the recent pie charts that we've been doing, which I need to pull up real quick. Don't look at this too much. My templates, well, boom. And here we go. There's a pie chart. Sorry, I should have had this up at the beginning. So this is from the recent pie chart I've done, and we're going to kind of go off of this to help me really hone in on what I think some of the top decks are and what are in the, you know, top 10-ish decks. So obviously Red Kenshin, Kikoru, Toshi, Kaiju number 8, Mina, Saito, Roy, and Blue JJK obviously should all be things that are in our top list. So anything on here on the outside looking in, Toshi. So I did have Toshi's top 16, but not one of the best decks in the format. So definitely we have to move this one up as one of the best decks in the format. Hands down, no reason not to, because it has performed so absolutely well. The Kikoru, I think, was a big surprise. I thought the Mina would be a little bit better, and I do still stand behind the fact that I do think Mina overall is a more powerful deck. But I think that the space for the yellow, purple, double pigtail powerhouse of a 3-cost deck is really, really good in this aggro format. So it has definitely shown itself to be one of the best decks in the format. So I definitely had to put it up here in the tops as well, because it has multiple tops. It's in this top kind of 8-ish decks here. Obviously Saito still being in that category. Blue JJK and Full Metal Alchemist. I guess if we were to have to, you know, resituate this down a little bit, we have Purple Code, Todo not doing so well, or Asta, Suzaku as well. So I think going off of results and my opinions, right, I guess we would put this a little bit situated on this kind of level. With these, you know, yellow Kaiju number 8 deck's just doing really, really well. And technically Kikoru has one of the more tops in this, but I will kind of keep it like this. I think that recency bias kind of does play into these particular deck list in general, right? But that is just my opinion on these things. But I think outside of that, all of that looks pretty good. So we need to kind of touch on some of these decks on the end here, right? Green, Kogia, Suzaku, the red, Black Clover, purple, Kogias, and Todo were all decks that did at least get one top or a couple of tops. You see Suzaku here with 2 tops, and same thing with Todo here. And I think that we could probably move down Asta and the purple Kogias deck as, you know, top 16-ish level decks for the most part here. Definitely not some of the best decks in the game, but if you were to ask, like, if this is based off of just my opinion alone, I would probably keep these up there in this upper tier, because they do always show out week to week to week to week to week, where there's always 1 or 2 or 3 of these in these different toppings as well. But like I said, I try to keep this one row kind of even for everyone. And with that being said, if we go based off of the other list, right, we get in this next tier, the green Kaiju deck, the Toguro Brothers deck, purple Bleach, also being up there. I think the purple Bleach is split between like purple Bleach and Squad Zero, so we'll keep this one up here in the higher tier. But I think outside of the Yu Yu Hakusho decks, the purple Toguro Brothers is a very powerful deck, and I'll put it just above Todo and Suzaku, because this turn 3 is more reliable than I think most people thought it would be in the game. You can actively always do this. I feel like 1 out of every 3 games I do the turn 3 damage 3 while also killing a body that they have up front. And sometimes that alone is just enough to give you enough pace in the game to just straight up, win a game. 2 damage on turn 3. Sometimes it's actually 3 because you typically will move up a body, then go into your Toguro place to pop a body. So a lot of times it's 3 checks with the Toguro brother, and then 1 more swing with another character you have out. So with Toguro doing pretty well, we have to put him up there. Suzaku, Todo, I think, also decks that deserve to stay in this kind of best-ish decks in the format tier. The Hoshino deck had 2 tops. I think this is more of a recency bias for that particular deck because we have the Kaiju number 8 as a really powerful deck we need to move up to, and I think that definitely goes in one of the best decks of the format. I'll put it right here, in this same kind of level of like the Toguro brother, Suzaku. I think these decks that take a little bit more energy to get going are going to, be on this like smaller end of not being as consistent to top as some of these aggressive, lower to the ground, control-y aggro decks. And I think that makes it round out pretty good, where all these decks are decks that have multiple tops over the last month, and it makes sense why they are there. I guess if there was one that we could talk about maybe not being one of the best decks, but I've always believed in the deck and thought it was really, really good, is the Tanjiro Nezuko deck. It's top 32. That's where I have it at here. But if we do go based off the pie chart, right, there are 2 of these that top the last couple months, and it is also always just one of those random decks that always sneaks in tops. And I think based off of that alone, with its consistency and power in the game, I've had it from all the way in one of the best decks in the formats to 16 to 32, and I think that we've been pretty spot on with it being like on the cusp of being one of the best decks in the format. It just depends on how often people will play the deck and what it goes through on there, right? So it technically has a couple more tops than Code and the Red Asta deck, but if I had to kind of like be really picky to organize them, I'd probably put Code above these 2 different decks, but still really, really strong decks in their own right? Now, coming through this, everything else is just 1 tops of all kinds of different decks, and the only thing I think that was lower on here than I maybe gave it credit for is that I thought Kurama would be, a Gatekeeper Rogue tier deck, and I still do think it is. It randomly snuck in the top. I thought that the, Tornado, Beautiful Zaku kind of deck would be a little bit more consistent than that one, but it did not see any play. So just touching on the Yu Hakusho decks at the moment, I'd have to put it down here in the Gatekeeper Rogue tier deck. Whereas where I have every other Yu Yu Hakusho deck, I think all these decks are powerful enough as an IP, because it is a newer IP for us, that they deserve to be on the list, and I wouldn't be surprised to see any Yu Yu Hakusho deck get a random top 32, top 16 finish. But for the most part, I think that they're just missing out a little edge on some decks that are a little more tried and true, standing the kind of like test of time. I think if I had to go on a limb, like I said, I thought that this deck, the purple deck, would be, a lot more active. It is really, really good. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. In like doing some similar things as Kenshin, as being able to mess with your opponent's energy line. And I still do believe in this deck a lot. I think the ceiling for Kurama is a lot higher than the other decks. That's why you were able to see it sneak atop. It feels like it plays a lot like the 3 Ladies in Red deck, on a similar tier of that deck, but people just need to figure it out. And since it did get a top, we will move it up, switching places with the purple deck, and up in this kind of level with all 3 of these kind of event-based decks, or all kind of fit in the same level of tier, because it's all about piloting. It's all about seeing certain lines. I don't think any 3 of these kind of event-based decks are consistent enough to constantly get these tops, but they are powerful enough when they see all things rolling. They can compete with any deck in the game. That's for sure. Now, that is the Yu Yu Hakusho deck. We've seen the purple bleach decks. I did not put Byakuya on here. I should have, but I just count that still as like a purple bleach deck. They run a lot of the same engines. Same thing here as like the Renji Rush base of the deck. Definitely top 32. Trying to stay a little more organized here. So let's stay on the Yu Yu Hakusho decks. Who are we missing? Yusuke, Urameshi. Now, Yusuke did get a top recently in one of the tournaments, so I do think that it is clearly still a top 16 kind of ish deck. Maybe it should be on this top 32 tier, but I do think that when Yusuke gets rolling, it can be very, very oppressive. It feels kind of like how Kurapika did when he first came out and was consistent enough. I think that Kurapika, if he just sees the right hands, can beat absolutely any deck in the game, and so is Yusuke. But the Yusuke plays are a little bit more oppressive, because if you have the Koima set up with a source underneath it and you raid on top of your Yusuke, the 7-drop, it now has snipe, impact, and if you do choose to use your Koima, now you can also rest a character, because once you snipe, your opponent's not blocking. So Yusuke comes down as technically a removal, a life check, and he stuns a body for a turn, which can just be so much of a humongous swing that your opponent could just lose enough pace and life in a game, where I do think that this is a really consistent, really strong deck, and I've been working really hard on my list to make it really consistent as well. But I think it definitely deserves to be in this like top 16-ish tier. Everyone sees there's always one of each, the yellow and green One Punch Man Saitama. I think that this is just a time and recency bias thing where this deck is a little older, but they're still very, very powerful, and if I had to, I'll keep them right where they are. I think that even with what Yusuke can do, these two decks, if they just pop off right, they still just beat any deck in the format. So that really kind of touches on the Yu Yu Hakusho decks. I don't have to move them around too much. To touch on another newer IP, the Kenshin decks, I will have to mess around a little bit with Saito, right? Saito has turned out to be this very consistent, very highly aggro-based deck. We've seen it get a couple tops the last time I did the meta report, and on this recent one, it did get a top as well. And I do think that this deck is so aggressive, so consistent, and all the Yu Yu Hakusho decks really are just so strong. Even the Sanosuke, even though he doesn't get played as much, I definitely think that this is a, really, really strong deck. Probably top 32 level if people just played it more, but I won't put it there because it hasn't really seen the toppings. But I have seen a lot of Kenshin lists run a Sanosuke package now just to give them a little bit more oomph and that nullify impact to go into the mirror matches, which is nice to see some Kenshin players actually thinking about their deck list to really try to combat other Kenshin decks, and I think that the Nullify Impact Sanosuke helps out in the mirror match a lot. But as his deck as his own, I think it's a Gatekeeper Rotier deck, very, very powerful. But the Aoshi deck is one of the premier aggro decks. I know it's a recency bias thing. I think that if I had to move it around, I would probably put Blue Bleach down because people aren't really playing as much. I would probably move the Aoshi and the Purple Homunculus just above the Yellow Sword Art Online decks. Those popped off a lot recently, or the past couple months. Not so much this month because there are newer decks people are trying to play, but I don't think that doesn't mean these two decks aren't still top 16 level-ish tiers. Now, if we go a whole nother month time period and there's not any tops, I'll definitely move them down, but I think they deserve to still stay in their spot at this top 16. Now, the Blue Bleach decks are ones that, we see a random top here and there, so we'll keep in top 16, but people just don't play this deck. Everyone's still stuck on their Purple Bleach decks and just how strong they can be, and I think that has been part of the issue why a lot less people have been playing Blue, because they still just want to play Purple, especially with some of the newer cards they got, right? Yeah, we touched on the One Punch Man. Now let's touch on some of the Full Metal Alchemist decks. I still think that the Elric Brother deck is really, really good. It does always see one or two random tops. I think that it is definitely, I think more consistent than the event-based decks. I think the ceiling of these event-based decks is a lot more powerful, but the Elric Brothers still is just standing the same test of time as the Tanjiro Nezuko. I think that they have a little bit harder of a time of being as consistent and really pushing through the damage, whereas Tanjiro Nezuko maybe have a little bit better of a way to close out the game, but it is still a very powerful, very strong deck, and definitely one you should be on the lookout for. Touched up on those. Yusuke, Attack on Titan. We've touched on that one before in the past. I have it as a Gatekeeper Rotier deck, but I will move it up into this top 32-ish tier because I think when I first brought it out on the first list we did when Attack on Titan came out, I put it as a top 16 because I really believed in the damage that this deck could put out, and it is really, really strong. I'll definitely probably put it above Kurapika because it has seen more tops. It's very consistent. In that same vein, we've seen the other blue Rurouni Kenshin deck on the same kind of level as this, where you're able to put in multiple damage a turn, clear off some bodies, and get some value. These two decks just don't do it consistently enough, but they are two very powerful decks that you definitely need to look out for. And, I give decks the benefit of the day if they see, solid hands that what their power can be, right? But consistency does come into play, and if these decks were more consistent, I do believe they would be, higher in on like this top 16-ish level tier kind of play of decks. Going through this, the Black Clover decks, we've already touched on the Asta. I don't think there is another one to really touch on outside of the Three Ladies in Red and the Green Black Clover Captain's deck. Now, this deck has gotten a top in the last 2 months. I think 1 this past month, 2 in the month before it, and it is, you know, finally being what I thought it would be. It's interesting to see that this deck has been doing so well. I'll definitely put it around the Sanosuke level-ish because this deck has been randomly showing up into these Kenshin matchups and doing pretty well. And I think it's just because of the number of 4 and 5k swings that you get in a turn that these other decks don't want to have to block those out. So sometimes you're just taking the damage or the impact. If you do block, you take the impact, or you just take damage too, or you lose your body to the 5k swings. And I think sometimes in a lineup where these 4k decks are just trying to keep their 4ks on board and constantly outvalue you, well, once you're able to just keep blocking out their 4k bodies with a 5k, it does put them in a little bit of a spot. But I'm glad to see this deck doing really well. I had on the outside looking in from the last time, but happy to see people are playing this deck because it is, you know, my favorite deck. That one and the Noel deck from that format and that IP. So glad to see that, you know, some of the other Black Clover decks are doing pretty well. Now, we talked about the Full Metal Alchemist, the Homunculus deck, and the Purple Kogias obviously getting tops. I do believe in both these decks. I really love the Homunculus deck. It is really good. You could do so many different things with the deck. I think that, you know, the Führer is definitely the main card that solidifies all the decks together. That's why I use him as the image, and then all the other Homunculus or Father package or Greed packages that you want to run all differ a little bit outside of that, but I do definitely think it is a top 16 kind of power level-ish tier deck. I think that that keeps everything in this top 32 pretty evened out where I like it to be. Nothing to talk about that we've missed here on any of this other stuff. Just going through it real quick. Yeah, that's everything here that I wanted to talk about. One that we need to add onto the list coming from an older IP is a Hunter x Hunter Blue Specified Slot deck. Someone did get a top with this deck recently, and I do believe in the consistency of this deck, so I'm glad to bring it back onto the list and tell you guys about how it has top. I think that that just puts it, you know, in this rogue tier-ish level of decks, just kind of around the level of Metal Bat or the Blue Sword Art Online. Now, I still really believe in Blue Sword Art Online aggro as a deck, and if I had to, you know, pick one of these decks down here that I really do believe in, it's slowly fallen out of one of the best decks to 16 to 32 for me, because I really try to give y'all more of a comprehensive idea and look out of what people are playing. But I will say that more people have been playing Blue Sword Art Online because we are in such an aggro heavy combo attack format that this deck does a lot better because it doesn't have to worry about some of these green build 'em up decks as much. And I think going into tournaments, I think that Sword Art Online is a really good deck to take into this format that you got going on. I definitely think it's a top 32 level. I know that's kind of wild to bring it all the way from down here up into this, but I've always believed in the power of this deck, and you need to be on the lookout of people playing this deck on regionals, maybe even, because this deck is really good. Still has always been one of the premier aggro decks in my opinion, so you need to be on the lookout for it. So just keep the Blue Specified Slot in your mind here. People are cooking with it and working with it pretty well. One of the only like Kenshin decks that to touch on Kenshin again we've not seen doing as well is the, you know, mill from the top of your deck, where you just try to play those cards for free. It's a little gimmicky and it's not as consistent. It takes the consistency engine that the Kenshin decks have and doesn't really play into them as much. It does its own thing with trashing to get value. Haven't seen a lot of the other Hunter x Hunter Green, you know, Gone and Friends, in the format at the moment. We've not seen green, we've not seen or yellow Full Metal Alchemist or yellow Bambi these, so I will probably push them on the outside. Looking in, if I had to keep one in here, it'd probably be Greed, because I really do believe in this deck, and that's what this kind of bottom-ish tier, the Gatekeeper Road tier decks are. All decks that I really believe in, but just haven't been performing at the moment. I guess if I had to move one a little bit further down, two would be these two decks, and I believe in Fushiguro, and I really believe in Blue Kogias, especially in this format. I've done a lot of testing with this into these aggro decks, and just being able to keep their characters tapped down, especially into the Roy Mustang format and the Kenshin format. Don't let them be able to attack you and get these effects. Really puts them behind a lot, because then they can't get value off those characters. Now you do have to play a little defensive, probably take some swings, get some life, and then bring down the mech to keep them all tapped down. But a lot of these plays where you're just tapping all their characters down to get in free swings can come in clutch. But I do really believe in this deck, so make sure you stay on the lookout for it. Coming down here, nothing crazy with the yellow, Hunter deck. I still kind of believe in it, even though it hasn't done anything. But Levi is one that we need to talk about. I think that Levi is in the same sense as, the Blue Sorter Online. In this aggro format that we're in, these decks now are in a better spot to perform well. I don't think Levi is as consistent as Sorter Online, but I would be negligent to not say that it's at least a Gatekeeper Rogue tier level now, where you're going to have to watch out for people trying to play Levi into this aggro format and really get a ton of swings in on you. I also really believe in Briggs, but it's on the outside looking in. No tops from this deck. Same thing with the Bomber deck. But with that being said, that is all of the current decks from the past pie chart for us to look into. And now we can really delve into what everyone has been waiting for, and that is the Nikke decks, right? I think all of these decks are really cool, really strong, and really powerful. And we'll kind of go through a couple of lists real quick, and then after that, talk about what the decks want to do. So you have this list here. I just got this from, like, if you ever want to find lists to look at, you can go to community, go to public deck list, and on there it'll display a lot of deck lists that people have made, and you can go through there and get some lists for people to look at. Now this is going to be the no trigger Pilgrim deck based around Dorothy and Harvin for the Pilgrim archetype from Nikke, and I do think that this is a really cool, very interesting deck that just deals around you not having triggers but then getting effects for not having triggers, and is a pretty cool deck. I don't think that this will be the most competitive out of all these decks. I think that the other purple deck is probably definitely a little bit better, but this IP is a newer one. But that being said, I think that it'll just be Gatekeeper Rogue tier level until we kind of figure out what is going on with that particular list and what people are going to do with the Nikke, right? All the cards from this set. It's a very interesting set here because excuse me, when they got it in Japan, it was a very different meta for them. Some very, very powerful archetypes for them to fight into. But I do think that Nikke is in a way better spot here in NA than it was ever in Japan. And just from this past weekend, at pre-releases, we usually do our pre-releases on the side and then still have our normal tournaments. These Nikke decks were popping off. Every single one of them did pretty well. Anyone who was playing it, we were doing the Conquest format, so multiple people got to play with all these different decks. This is the one I didn't see people as much popping off with, but definitely a deck to look out for. So that is the no trigger Nikke deck, and then the no hand Nikke deck, which is focused around kind of the Rapunzel. And this Scarlet card for purple in Nikke is just insanely strong. This card is really, really good. It does cost you 5 energy, 2 action points. It comes out active. It lets you place 3 cards of your hand to your sideline. It gains all abilities listed below for each card you place. So it'll have when attacking, draw a card, double attacker 5k. So it's a double attacker 5k with when attacking to draw a card, which is not once per turn. So you're going to attack and draw 2 more cards to fill your hand back up. This card is absolutely insane. Very, very powerful. You also have the Snow White card, which just lets you negate the effect of one of your opponent's cards, which is really good. And she also says when attacking, you have 2 or less cards in your hand, draw up to 1 card, which is really good, being able to let you refill your hand. So you're going to trash your hand to get effects, and then just obviously the Modernia being able to let you do some cool things, and the Rapunzel being an amazing card, and I love Rapunzel. She's probably, the Scarlet Rapunzel, my 2 favorite arts. I love the art from this, but she kind of lets you blow up a 2k or less, or switch it. If you have no cards in your hand, choose it when your opponent's character is 2,000 less BP on your opponent's front line, and switch it to resting, which is really, really good. And then the Modernia says, when played, you may choose it to one character in your opponent's front line. If you do, reduce the chosen character's BP by 3,000 until the end of your turn, and place all the cards in your hand into your sideline. So just lets you reduce some stuff down and then later be able to swing in with the Rapunzel to then rest that character. This deck is really, really good. I think that this is definitely, oh man, some of these decks are really good, but I do think that this deck is like a top 16 level-ish deck. I believe in this deck a lot. Just being able to see a lot of cards and then get a lot of value and just have a plethora of really powerful cards, multiple raid targets, multiple hard drop cards that are going to get you a lot of value, plenty of double energy generators and good effects on your cards, and just having everything you want with, when play, draw 1, trash ones, when active, double energy, searcher cards, everything that you would want. This deck is really strong, really good, and if you have not thought about building this deck yet, you should, because this one is really fun and really cool to kind of think about. But that is the two different purple decks. That's kind of where I sit them at. I think that the Rapunzel-ish deck, you know, dealing with the drawing cards and trashing cards, I think you just see so many cards that this deck can just consistently pop off. With that one being said, I do want to talk about the yellow decks as well, because they have some really good event cards in them. And this particular one, this is the missile deck. This is the yellow deck that kind of revolves around uni for the missile archetype. I think that this one is really good. It obviously has, you know, some really cute, awesome characters, being able to get you some extra damage, nullify impact, and you kind of just rush the board down with a lot of 35k bodies onto the board, which is, you know, getting you a lot of value, and it's just really consistent. The only thing about this one is that it is missing out on more good raid targets and just other things to do. I do think this one still be a gatekeeper rogue tier level-ish deck. Probably better than, you know, the Metal Bat and the Gone and Friends kind of stuff. Like around that same level. Good unionarena decks that do a little bit of everything. You're never going to get just completely wiped out in a game. But something to think about there on those particular decks. Definitely really cute. Like art, like the Nikke set is absolutely amazing. The art on it is really cool. But I definitely think the better of these two yellow decks is going to be the memory deck, and it's because of this card right here is insane. You can only use one of them once per turn, but you draw 2 cards and place 1 card from your hand into your sideline. If you place an event card into your sideline with this ability, choose up to one of your AP cards and switch it to active. It's a free draw 2 trash one. It's so good. And this deck absolutely pops off. It is so strong. You have Ines in it. Everybody loves her. She's a really popular one. I know that Modernia, Rapi is in here, Marion. You have so many different, 3 different raid targets in a 4-drop. That is your color trigger that lets you search out memory cards when she is sidelined. And she also has nullify impact, so you don't mind when she gets sidelined. This is a really quick, very fast deck with a lot of power to be able to, you know, have a double blocker, have nullify impacts, have an impact player, boost your character by 1,000 so you have a 5k body that can get in with the impact. This deck is really, really good. It's very, very consistent, and I believe in this deck a lot. I think it is really, really good. I also think it is up here in this kind of top 16-ish level. I could just be coping with these Nikke decks, right? Like, but I really, really believe in these decks. These two especially, I think in our current NA, it's a very unique meta game, and I can see both of these decks doing really well in our particular meta, and I definitely think these are the 2 best decks to come out of Nikke. But all of the decks are pretty solid and playable, but definitely watch out for this one. I think this one is probably the one that's a little more expensive to build, though, because you do need so many different SRs. You need 4 copies of each of 4 of these, and if you want to bling it out, also, you know, it's going to take you a little money to get these alt-arts. The alt-arts for this particular set are very expensive because of the waifu tax, but this one is really, really good. I was very surprised about this one. I got my butt beat by it at the tournament this weekend because it was so consistent. I think my opponent, he ended up only having like maybe 12 cards left in this deck. That's how consistent and how much draw power it has. Really good deck. Definitely be on the lookout for that one. And I think that the 2 green decks are the 2 decks I think that didn't get as much love and support as the different archetypes. I definitely feel like the 5-drop, this is like your build 'em up deck in here. This is Laplace. This is a Missile Mantis. If you have 2 or more other Missile Fendi cards with 4,000 or more BP on your front line, she gains damage 2, right? But it has to be 2 or more other cards, so she doesn't count herself. I think that slows her down a little bit, but she does say, when played, choose it 1 character on your opponent's front line and move it to the energy line. Now, we've seen how good this effect is, especially if your opponent's energy line is full, right? If their energy line is full, you pick a character to move back, and say that was the only character they had. Now you're swinging in, damage 2, you messed up their energy line, and this is definitely your finisher for the deck, but the deck is just missing out on some support. You have a lot of like generic 4k bodies to throw on the board. You have a lot of ways to, you know, draw cards, boost your characters by 1,000 to get them to the 4,000 body range. You have a great kill spell in this particular deck too, and I think that this card, the litter here, missile, this is your searcher for the deck, which is really good, but you do have to, you know, place 1 card from your hand to the sideline. I don't like that this one has to do that, but it is the kind of like, if it was a double energy generator too, right, it would be so good, but you just get to switch her to resting to boost the BP of one of your characters on the board, which is really, really good, but I wish she was a double energy generator. It'd make this deck feel a lot better. You do have some good when attacking triggers just by boosting your people up, and I love the art of this one. And if there was any of these decks that I'd probably build, it would probably be this deck, because this is kind of my play style, but a little bit low to the ground kind of build 'em up deck with not as much payoff, but with some cute art characters and really, really cool effects to go into. And it's the same thing with other green decks. They kind of just try to nerf green by making some of the cards you have to include, like this one is a missile card, so is your double energy generator, and they don't have triggers, right? It's just a way for them to keep nerfing the green build 'em up decks. But with that being said, I still think that it could probably have a place maybe just below the other Nikke decks in like a competitive sense, but I think it'd still be kind of like gatekeeper rogue tier deck. If there was one deck I think that would struggle from Nikke, it's this particular deck that may be on the outside looking in. But I'm going to try to maybe build this week, and I wasn't going to build a Nikke deck because I didn't want to have to get involved in Nikke, but it looks like I might have to. And with our last deck here, we do have the Tetra Unlimited, which is focused around this Alice, which people love Alice. I knew about Alice before I even found out about Nikke coming to the game because she is so popular. But she is just a searcher, and she lets you play a character that is 2 or less onto the board, which is really good. It's like a low to the ground aggressive aggro deck. Obviously Noir, people have seen her as a card too, and Rupee. This is a very cute, very popular archetype for Nikke. I've seen a lot of these characters before I even knew about the game. Biscuit here, and you just play down a lot of low drop bodies and really try to aggro down your opponent. But just like I said about the other green deck, it doesn't seem like they have enough raid targets in the deck, and it makes you feel like you kind of want to mix in Alice with the other archetype, but then you're kind of taking away from both of the different decks. But very cute, very cool. This is kind of a low to the ground aggro-ish kind of deck, but it doesn't do quite the same as like the deck for the green Attack on Titan Hoshino deck, which is definitely a lot better than this particular deck and what it's trying to do. But both of these decks definitely playable, definitely strong because they have triggers, they have a lot of things going for them, but I definitely think kind of just rogue tier-ish level for that. But that is going to be this video. Let me know what you guys think about this tier list. I think that I try to give this particular tier list more time, more of my thoughts, more of my opinions, but also try to make it more critical for you all to see what people are playing, and then me trying to project where I think some of these decks are going forward. But to kind of like touch up on this particular tier list, like what makes it different from the last one. Green Bleach, very, very powerful with the card upgrades. The yellow Kaiju number 8 decks are insane, tearing up the meta. The purple Toguro Brothers, definitely the best deck from Yu Yu Hakusho. The green Kaiju number 8 deck is the premier kind of green build 'em up, mash up your opponent deck. And then I do think that these two, the purple Rapunzel and the Rappi yellow deck from Nikke, are going to be the 2 best decks from there. And I think they will have a place in our metagame at the current moment because they are pretty strong and very consistent. But not crazy changes from here on out, but I will do another one of these probably in 2 or 3 weeks to give these Nikke decks some time to make a splash onto the meta scene. And then I'll give you guys another competitive tier list breakdown video. But this is mine. I'll be sure to post it on socials or on the channel for y'all. But you can use this. I'll try to link this tier list in the descriptions if I remember to. Please go on here, make your own tier list with this list, and let me know what you guys think the tier list should look out. Tag me in them because I want to, interact with the community a little bit more. But with that being said, I appreciate all of y'all hanging out with me today. Please like the video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are getting closer and closer to 500, and I could not be more excited. But I appreciate y'all hanging out with me today. Peace.